Welcome to Don't Ask That Question. I'm Kelly O'Mara, and I am so pleased to introduce my guest this week. Her name is Kim Rhode. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with Kim, in short, I think she's a shooting phenom. As an amateur competitive shooter myself, I'm sort of in awe of her abilities. More specifically, Kim is one of America's most winning Olympians. Kim has won a medal in 5 different continents. She is a 6-time Olympic medal winner, including 3 gold medals, 1 silver, and 2 bronze. Kim is the only athlete ever to win Olympic medals in all 3 shooting disciplines: trap, double trap, and skeet. She's the most successful female shooter at the Olympics as the only triple Olympic champion and the only woman to have won 2 Olympic gold medals for double trap. Many acknowledge her as the greatest female shooter in the world, and I'm one of those. I'm just in awe. So away from the Olympic Stadium, Kim is working hard to change California's ammunition restrictions and is an ardent Second Amendment supporter. We're going to chat with Kim about her Olympic journey, what her Olympic future looks like, and we're going to talk about why the Second Amendment is so important. I've always said that the Second Amendment is the amendment that sort of guarantees all the rest. So let's find out what Kim thinks about the recent assaults to the most important amendment. Welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for being on my show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So before we get started sort of into, what's happening with gun laws in the country, I'd really like you to kind of talk a little bit about yourself. I know it's hard to talk about yourself. I hate doing it, but you're sort of this really special person. I'm just kind of curious. What does it feel like to stand on an Olympic podium, and hear the Star Spangled Banner and the national anthem? And
well, I mean, the reality is that I don't think you ever think of yourself as being the best at anything. I know I don't. I feel like I'm always constantly still learning. But to your question, what is it like to stand on that podium? The best way I can describe it is every emotion hits you at once. You want to run, you want to scream, you want to cry, you want to jump up and down, and you just don't know which one to do first. And I can honestly say, when you're standing up there and you're watching that flag go to the top of the pole and you're hearing that national anthem, it's about the journey it took to get there, the memories, the moments, the good, the bad, everything in between. And I think that's what really has every Olympian coming back again and again. I know for me, it's addicting, and can honestly say that after 5 or 6 Olympics, and now currently going for my 7th, I look forward to it each and every time. It's such an honor to represent your country.
So can you talk a little bit about what goes into becoming an Olympic champion as a shooter? What as a kid, how did you start, and what were the hours like? I mean, how much time did you put into this?
Oh, shooting was just a way of life for my family. I mean, my grandfather was from Montana, was a rancher, and just took all that rich history and passed it on to my father, that passed it on to my mom, at which point they both passed it on to me. I mean, it's just something that's been generationally passed down in my family. But at the same time too, I grew up literally fishing and hunting and shooting, and somebody said, you're pretty good, why don't you try the club shoot? And it just kind of mushroomed from there to the state shoot and the world shoot, and it just kind of kept growing until my first Olympics in 1996, which happened to be right here in the United States, which was amazing to have the USA crowd cheering me on in the stands. And I was fortunate enough to go to the Olympics at 16 and turn 17 5 days before my event and walk away with a gold medal representing the United States. So it's pretty amazing all the way around. As far as the work, lots and lots of hours, putting a lot of lead downrange, as we like to say. A lot of good times, a lot of tough times. I mean, I think every Olympian will tell you there are bumps in the road, and that's what makes winning so much sweeter, is overcoming those obstacles. When people say you can't, or walking away with that gold medal, it just makes it that much sweeter when you've had to work so hard to get to that point. And I think that's something that you find at different points in your life. When you're 16, you have different obligations versus when you're in your 30s or your 40s. So those things change. And I definitely found that to be true with each and every Olympics.
Wow. So when you were a kid, I'm kind of curious, just again, because I shoot, I'm going to just take the opportunity to kind of talk to you about this. Was it like I had to have my shotgun fitted, because they don't make shotguns really for women. Generally, they're all kind of made for men, and then you kind of tweak them, so it took a couple of years just to get that right for me, as far as, because it matters, right? The fit of the gun.
Gun fit is number one. It's like the most important thing. Obviously, when you're doing it, like we are, anywhere from 500 to 1,000 times a day, one small thing can really become, like that whole saying, a mountain becomes a molehill. It can be huge. So definitely gun fit is a major component, and definitely, success, and whether you hit or miss a target. And ultimately, we need to be a machine, do it 1,000 times, nothing different. And that's the challenge that we all face.
So okay, so as a kid, you just sort of had this natural ability, and your family said, hey, why don't you go for it, and
the rest is history. Yeah, the rest is history. I mean, I like to think it was that easy. It's definitely not. But I mean, as a kid, I definitely picked it up a little bit quicker. I definitely loved what I did. I mean, you have to have the passion and the love and the desire. Nobody can make you do it. The reality is you have to want to wake up at 5 and do your homework. I remember that when I was a kid. I remember, getting out there extra early, putting in long hours, and, really hot weather, different shooting conditions. I mean, you have to really want it. And at the end of the day, that was something that I loved. I've always loved shooting. It's something I spent with my family, and I've just always enjoyed it. My father is my coach. My mom is my assistant. So it still is to this day. So it's been very family oriented, as you'll find to be the case with most other shooters. It's a way of life, and I absolutely love it.
Now you also you train, right? Do you do training sessions with people?
Yes, I do some coaching. Most of my coaching is done for charity, though, as time is very limited as far as our own training and what we need to do to hopefully bring home those medals for the United States. But at the same time, I have done quite a bit of coaching, and I've done pretty much all the different sports. From American skeet to international skeet to bunker doubles. I've competed in all the events in the Olympics. In shotgun, I should say that for sure. Not in rifle and pistol. However, I did shoot competitively for a little bit in 22 rifle.
Wow.
So yeah, it's something you once you get the bug, as I always say, the shooting, it's such a wonderful sport to be in. I mean, you have no shelf life. You can do it for years and years to come. And I think that's one of the beauties of it. It's one of the safest sports to compete in the Olympics. We've had no injuries or anything. So, and it's a sport that everybody can do. Men and women are on an equal playing field, which is something that's always, I think, drawn me to it, is to be able to compete, head to head with the men with no disadvantage or advantage. I mean, everyone's equal, and that's one of the great things about the sport.
So I didn't know that. Wow, that's this is new. I didn't know that you compete against the men in the Olympics.
Well, we did originally, not as of late, but we did actually. Men and women did compete against each other up until I think it was the LA Olympics. I'm not exactly sure of the date, but a lady shot a perfect score, and so there's that's the beauty of it. We can compete very equally in our sport, and I think you're going to see us go back to that in the future. I think we're moving in that direction with the IOC and stuff like that, but it hasn't happened yet. But not to say that it can. I mean, I think it's very doable. As far as in American events like American Skeet and ATA and all those, of course, it's 100% men and women compete against each other. And that's really how I started. And I think where the draw really was for me.
Interesting. Okay. I didn't realize that that's what it was in the Olympics. I mean, when I go to tournaments for sporting clays, really it's men and women, but it's your class, you're shooting
Mhm.
within your class. So
Yeah,
that's
and it's men and women in that class. You're open, high overall. Even as a junior, if you go back even on in history, I think when you look on the men's trophy, it was just the junior trophy at the time. It's now like the men's trophy. You'll see my name on it because we were competing head to head, and it's kind of fun when you look back at history and kind of the stuff that we were trailblazing in those days.
wow. How many shots do you shoot a day when you're getting your training?
Um, Shots in a day, I would say I average between 500 to 1,000 rounds a day.
Wow.
So quite a bit of training and a lot of competition to say the least. But we do a lot of repetition, a lot of you know um, drills, making it like walking so that we're not thinking right, left, right, left, right, left. We're just basically, going out there and, walking, as I like to say. We're not thinking about whole points or leads or anything like that. So a lot of repetition, a lot of muscle memory, a lot of hand-eye coordination drills, things like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Like like hand-eye coordinate. What do you mean? I'm just curious. What do you mean by that?
Well, like hand-eye coordination is basically when you point at something, you tend to be right on it, or being able to look at a screen. And I always like to say, like video games, where you can not have to look at the remote while you're working the character on the screen. It's the hand-eye coordination, and that you use in everyday life. But we tend to hone that more in the shooting sports.
Huh. Okay. All
So being
right.
able to stare at the target and, put your gun, so far in front of it, or see your lead, that muscle memory to be able to make that move and swing with that target, just little things like that make a huge difference.
Wow. Okay. Fascinating. So, okay, we'll get into where you're going down the road in the Olympics at the end here. But so let's get into a little bit about the Second Amendment, just because I know you're a big supporter of it, and I guess the question is, why do you support the right of people to own guns? And what's your take on why our founding fathers first felt the need to add this to the amendment to the Bill of Rights?
Well, I mean, that's a really good question. I guess I feel that people have the right to defend themselves and their families. And I guess I've always felt that there's a misconception that the police are going to be there to defend you in your home or your business or when you're out and about. I guess, let's be realistic. A police officer is going to get there in like 10, 20 minutes after they're called. So the question becomes, and I think you hear this a lot, is what are you going to do in those minutes before they arrive? You're basically at the mercy of, the situation, and you need to defend yourself. And I feel that's where most non-shooters don't understand until they're in that situation and totally helpless. And when you look at our founding fathers, I think everybody has their own take on, what our founding fathers meant when adding the Second Amendment to the Bill of Rights. I know for me, I'm not a historian by any means, but just as a competitive shooter, I feel that the founding fathers were basically coming from having been very restricted and, living with a lot of oppression, and understood what all that meant and why they made the Second Amendment. I mean, let's face it, the Second Amendment wasn't put in so that we could all go hunting or, competitively, shoot. In my opinion, the Second Amendment was put in to protect all the other Bill of Rights and to protect this country from both foreign and domestic threats. I mean, a perfect example of this is what's happening, in Ukraine right now. I mean, where you have small militias made up of civilians is what's stopping Russia from totally invading the country. I mean, people say that nowadays we don't need the public to have firearms to be able to defend, families or stuff. But Ukraine is a perfect example of why we do need to keep and bear arms.
Yeah, exactly. But also, I think it was in the case of our founding fathers, I mean, they wanted the ability of the people to defend themselves against their own government too, having just fought against their government at the time, which was, the British Empire, right?
Well, I mean, both foreign and domestic. I mean, it states in
Right.
there clearly, but I think like I said, Ukraine is a great example of what is happening currently, present day, and why we should feel the need to keep our Second Amendment rights. It's so important on so many different aspects, from freedom of speech to all the above, really.
Right, right. So the Second Amendment clearly states that, quote, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I've always argued, again, that, the Second Amendment sort of ensures that all the others, are good. And any tweaking of the amendment, I think, is an infringement. I mean, I think any tweaking of this Second Amendment is an infringement. Why do you think lawmakers feel like they continually need to strip away those rights?
Oh, well, I feel that, lawmakers are constantly, trying to appease their base, and have solutions to what they deem are problems. However, with all that being said, I feel that lawmakers are always looking for that quick fix. It's always easy to blame the gun rather than all the other things that take time to fix. Like, for example, the breakdowns of families, mental health issues, gangs, drugs. I think the list goes on and on. I mean, even to the systematic erosion of police and the judicial system that we have today. I mean, they want to come across as having found the solution that is, going to be the fix to X, Y, and Z. But lawmakers don't want to have to face the music about how their policies aren't working. So it's always about, how am I going to do this or that? And the sad part is, most of these lawmakers, they don't know anything about shooting or guns. And so the laws and policies don't really do anything to really solve the problems or the issues. And I think that's really what we see.
Right. For years now, when I was a reporter at the Washington Times, I broke a story then nationally that the only thing the school shooters had in common, and this was right after Columbine. I looked at the last 13 school shootings prior to Columbine and up to Columbine. And the only the only thing they all had in common, it wasn't that they wore black clothes, or they looked at video games, or they came from broken family. It was none of that. The only thing they had in common was they all had been prescribed psychiatric drugs as children, right? And we know that, psychiatric drugs, they say it right on, the insert, may cause mania, psychosis, abnormal behavior, homicide, suicide. It goes on through this whole list of things that these drugs can cause. And, my argument for now 23, 24 years has always been, hey, let's look at that. Is that playing a role in these kids that kind of step off, right? And everybody argues, well, a lot of kids take these drugs, right? And they're fine. That's right. A lot of kids take these drugs and they're fine, but some can't, right? That's why they put these warnings, on them. And I'm always amazed that lawmakers never want to look at that. In fact, the recent legislation that was just passed after Uvalde by the in Congress basically said, okay, we're going to increase mental health spending. And me, as somebody who has researched it for 25 years, 23 years, increasing mental health funding to me says we're going to increase the drugging. It's not we're going to sit down and have talks with these kids every week or twice a week. It's we're going to increase the drugging, and that scares me. And I just found out the shooter yesterday in Chicago has a mental health history. So unfortunately, they don't look at everything. They're throwing money at mental health, and we're going, well, we're not sure that the mental health is actually working. You know what I mean? That's kind of been my argument for a long time. Let's have disclosure. They tend to not put out any information about the kids who are on psychiatric drugs at the time. And I go, well, that's important for lawmakers to know so that we can have an open conversation. just so that we can fix this problem, right? And so there are certain things that they just won't look at, which, drives me crazy because
Well,
I have been looking at it.
Well, I think it just comes back to that same thing. It's not any one easy fix. And that's this thing. It's a multi issue problem that essentially you see, unfortunately. And I mean, our hearts break
Yes.
for each and one of these families and these tragedies that occur. I mean, we all don't like to see this, and we all have children that go to schools, and we're all parents. But at the same time too, it's not an easy fix. It's not just one thing. And I think that's where the politicians really go wrong is, let's blame this or let's blame that, instead of actually really looking at the different facets of gangs, of drugs, of mental health, of, the breakdown of judicial systems and different things, not wanting to label. I mean, all these issues play into these problems. And unfortunately, until we're willing to, take a hard look at these and really find solutions, are we going to fix these problems?
Well, the problem though is that the longer we wait, the quicker that normal Americans' gun rights are chipped away. Okay, so what's happening is every time there's a shooting, they go, oh, we got to institute, red flag laws, or we're going to change the way that you apply, register your gun, and we're going to, and it just goes on and on and on. So little by little, the laws get chipped away, little by little. And I see this happening, of course, more and more every time there's a shooting, a major shooting. You know what I mean? I mean, unfortunately, people are killed in droves in Chicago every weekend and nobody blinks an eye, right? But
it's sad.
But if there's a school shooting, or if there's, like yesterday's parade shooting, then, the media is on it. But it happens all the time. And, I don't know that you can get a gun. This is what's kind of interesting. When you register, they ask you these questions on the, on the form, you have
But
to fill out.
then again, it comes back to enforcing the laws that we already have. But it comes back to, once again, like it being a very multi-problem issue that comes together to create these scenarios. And it's the what ifs this and what if that. And I don't think anybody can anticipate that what if scenario. I mean, we definitely all try. We obviously don't want these issues or these things to occur. But I mean, you look at, alcohol and drunk driving. You look at, swimming pools in the summer. I mean, it's there are a lot of issues out there. However, these are the ones that are politicized and highlighted because this is the political tone of the nation right at this moment. And, you look at the issue that we have with drugs right now and all the people that are currently dying and that. And I mean, that dwarfs, I think, everything. And when you look at, the masses of that, however, we hear very little of it. So I think it's really sad when you have something that is being politicized, and when there are, a lot of other issues and a lot of issues in general. I mean, nobody, like I said, wishes this on these types of scenarios. And obviously our hearts break for the families.
Right. I get it. So, in recent days, there have been two recent Second Amendment issues that have been legislated or come to the court rulings, the Supreme Court, that seem to support the right of the people to keep and bear arms. And the first would be the recent decision by the U.S. Supreme Court regarding the state of New York, which basically the state of New York can't require applicants for a license to carry a gun outside of their home to have proper cause to do so. So the Supreme Court said that, the New York state law violated the Second Amendment. Why do you think this is important to overturn it?
Well, I think it goes to everything that I previously stated. I mean, I'll be the first to say I'm definitely not a lawyer. I mean, no offense to any lawyers out there, but for me personally, I interpret, what is it, quote unquote, proper cause as, that some, bureaucrat is sitting at a desk who doesn't know me, or my situation, doesn't get to judge me and decide if I can legally carry a gun. I basically don't have to explain why I want or feel the need to own a gun. Quite frankly, I shouldn't have to explain or come up with a bunch of what ifs. As I said earlier, I feel that every person has an individual right to defend themselves. And in a way, it's almost comical to me that they want to hear all the dangerous reasons why, I feel a need to carry a gun, or you need it, you feel a
Right.
need to carry a gun.
Right. So anyway, that was struck down. I understand though that New York is sort of getting around that as we speak, because they were, not happy with the Supreme Court's ruling, which of late Supreme Court's getting a bad rap.
And I mean, at least people have the right to carry, and they don't need to have an excuse or reason or have had something dangerous happen to them already to be able to prove that they can carry it. I mean, that is your Second Amendment right, and essentially that's what the Supreme Court was stating in that
The
ruling,
right to
is that
bear
you
arms
have the
shall
right
not
to
be
carry.
infringed.
Right.
And that was a total infringement. You have to prove to us why you want that. I mean, it's a total infringement. But they got away with it for a while, right? So anyway, the second major issue that was voted on in Congress, which was because of Uvalde, everybody, crisis management. Let's do something. Hurry, hurry, hurry. So basically, part of the legislation that was passed in Congress was, that they were going to pay states to institute red flag laws. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with red flag laws, it's just another way to remove firearms from the public. Very similar to New York going, you have to tell us why you want, the right to carry a gun. In this instance, it's like, I'll give an example. Let's say my neighbor doesn't like me for whatever reason. I shoveled snow up onto their driveway one year, and they don't like me now. So they happen to know that I have a shotgun and I'm a competitive shooter, but so they can make a phone call, to the police and say, hey, my neighbor, blah, blah, blah. And the police can come and take my gun for no reason. That's what red flags are about to me. And I think they're wrong. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think everybody in America wants to see less violence and, fewer criminal acts. The specifics vary from state to state, but, red flag laws, basically, like you say, allow family members, law enforcement, I believe teachers, and just any general citizen to report to authorities based on their own opinions. And I think that's important, their own opinions, that you are a danger to yourself or to others. And a red flag law allows law enforcement officials to confiscate your firearms for a period of time without due process. And it's really a tough question. And there is, like I said, and I think this goes back again to that there's no real quick fix or easy answer to it. I mean, everyone agrees that mentally ill and dangerous people shouldn't own firearms. The question is, how do you identify mentally ill and dangerous people while still giving them their constitutional right of innocent until proven guilty? And it's worrisome, I think, when someone else's opinion is taking away your constitutional right. It doesn't have to be based on evidence, but like I said, it comes back to rather the opinions or accusations of your peers. And the accused, doesn't have the opportunity to challenge this accusation until after their guns are taken away. At which point, I think it's really, one of those things to note is that the accused is left spending their own time and money defending a constitutional right and trying to prove their innocence. And, this goes against our judicial system by saying that you're guilty until proven innocent, which in my opinion is wrong.
Right. Well, in this case too, with red flag laws, I believe I'm correct in saying this. You don't even have the right to know who made the complaint. So in other words, I don't have the right to know if my neighbor made this complaint.
Well, I think it varies from state to state. And I mean, I'm no expert in all the different legal nuances from state to state. So I would hate to comment without knowing exactly. But I definitely feel that, it goes against our Constitution and, what our country, was founded upon, as far as you're innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent. And that is like one of the big issues for me. I mean, obviously, we don't want people with mental illness or people that are dangerous to have firearms. I mean, there are a lot of laws on the books. I look at, we have Gaston here in, California, who is letting out a lot of criminals that have, dangerous histories and pasts. And, we had 2 police officers shot here in El Monte, California. I mean, the list goes on and on. I know that when I had my gun stolen, and they notified me that they had recovered it, they actually, the guy was already out before they even told me, and he was on parole for assault with a deadly weapon. So there are a lot of other issues there that I think that can be addressed. But at the same time too, I think constitutionally you're innocent until proven guilty. And that's just the way I believe. I mean, that's what our country was founded upon, not the other way around.
And you have a right to face your accuser.
And you have your right to face your accuser, and you should have the right to defend yourself.
Right.
And prove your innocence in a court of law and amongst your peers in the whole 9 yards. But like I said, I'm no expert on law. I'm not a lawyer, so I leave it to them. But at the same time, I think that's like one of the major issues that a lot of Second Amendment people have with the red flag laws. Not to say that they aren't against, I think, having people who have mental illness, and once again, or people who are dangerous, those people should not own firearms. I think everybody would agree with that. But it's just that distinction. How do you determine that? And that comes back to, we have to take some look at, some of the laws and enforce some of the laws that we already have on the books, and a lot of other stuff. But like I said, I'll leave that to the lawyers and to the experts.
Okay.
It's such a complex issue,
It is.
I don't think there's any one, XYZ kind of thing that's going to fix it. At least that's my opinion. I'm sure there's a million other opinions out there, but it is a challenging one. And we're in challenging times these days.
Yeah. But we have to have an open conversation about all of the elements, it
Almost
can't
definitely
just be limited to firearms. You know what I mean? So that's my bother, is that we're not looking at everything that goes into these tragedies that we're seeing. Okay. So that's really my gripe in life, but
But I think it's not just the tragedies. I mean, I think it's just in general. I mean, when you look at your Second Amendment right, or the Constitution, you should be innocent until proven guilty, not the other way around. And this, the red flag laws definitely take aim at that and do violate a lot of those rights. And that's something where, if it's not just the Second Amendment, it could be, other issues and other constitutional rights that can be infringed upon. And I mean, at what point does that stop? It's not
Right.
just about the Second Amendment. It's about all of them. And that's something that I think everybody should take note of.
Yeah. Yeah. So the final issue I want to talk to you about is, you filed suit in the state of California against Proposition 63. You want to talk about that? What is it, and why did you feel so strongly enough to file a lawsuit?
So this law is a way of basically taking away your Second Amendment rights. I mean, we keep coming back to that issue in this conversation, but I think that's why we're here. And it basically is takes away your ability to be able to get ammunition. And what good is a gun without ammunition? And I want to, make a difference. I want to make sure that the shooting sports are around for many generations, for my son, my son's son. And Proposition 63 makes it very difficult for anyone in the state of California to purchase ammunition without doing a, background check. And, just to give you an example, as me being a competitive shooter, say I want to go to Arizona and shoot in a competition, and I get to the match, I purchase some ammunition, I shoot the match, and hey, guess what? I have, maybe a couple boxes left, and I, need to go back to California. Well, I can't take one shell back with me across state lines into California, and that's because of Prop 63. However, if I was from, say, Arizona or Utah, and I purchased ammunition in those states, and I was not a resident of California, and I was going to California, I could bring a whole truckload full of ammunition into the state, perfectly legal. So Proposition 63 doesn't really make sense, but also at the same time, it limits me here in California only because I am a California resident, but doesn't limit anybody else.
So wait, let me see if I get this straight. So I'm in Nevada. I shoot in California all the time in competitions. So I can take as many shells as I want from Nevada into California.
That is correct.
And shoot. And if I have shells left over, I can bring them back out.
Yep, that is correct. But I can't do it as a California resident.
How interesting. That doesn't make sense at all.
It doesn't. And their claim was that it would make us all safer, but how does that make us safer? And so that we actually, I can't comment too much about it because we're still working through this in the courts. But at the end of the day, I'm fighting for the rights of every shooter, every competitor, and for the sport as a whole, to make sure that, it's, that we can continue doing what we love and, passing that on for generations to come.
Mm-hmm. And obviously you're somebody who shoots a lot of ammunition. So
yes, I am. Yes,
this
I am.
really affects you.
Oh yeah. I've had to bring in all my ammunition prior to this bill. Essentially, I shoot anywhere between 500 and 1,000 rounds a day, every day, in full training. So that gives you an idea. That's somewhere between 2 to 4 flats a day of training. Wow. And I do that about 7 days a week. So yeah, there's a lot of let down range to be an Olympian.
Wow. Okay. Jeez. So I'm just curious, when you go to the Olympics and you travel overseas, how does that work? Can you send your, shells ahead of time, or, I mean, how does that work? Are there international laws?
So with the Olympics and stuff, we're very regulated on the ammunition. It's actually tested, it's weighed, it's measured. They randomly come up and select them out of our pockets to make sure that we're all on an equal playing field. So it is very, very, restricted, I guess not restricted, but very precision based in our sport. And so the shells that we shoot are also a 7/8 of an ounce. So it's essentially like a high base 28 gauge shell and a 12 gauge hull. So we're limited on the amount of shot that we're shooting. And so makes it harder for us to hit the targets. And, basically it's only used in the international or at the Olympic type level of shooting. And so when it comes to our competitions, our ammunition is so specialized, it's actually sent ahead of time to the actual venues, or if they have some there, because our usually ammunition is internationally produced, so we'll purchase it there or ship it there in order for us to be able to compete at the level that we need to win those medals and hopefully bring it home for the United States. But yeah, it's not an easy process, but yeah, that's our ammunition so specialized. It's not used for really anything other than, at the Olympic level, not even in really American skeet or ATA. It's deemed to be too fast and not legal by the rules of the game to shoot in those games. So it's very, very specialized. And you don't really see it very often. They only do one run a year of it.
Wow. Oh, who makes it? Can I ask who makes it? Who?
Well, yeah, my ammunition is Winchester. So I shoot a Winchester International load. It's made by Winchester. They do like one run a year. And yeah, that's very, very, very hard to get. You don't really find it on any shelves or anything too easily.
Wow. Interesting. Okay, so um, what does your Olympic future look like? What's your goals here?
Well, I think my goals are like any Olympian will tell you, is to go for the next one and the next one and the next one. No, I mean, for me, I'm looking at Paris. I've had a few setbacks this last couple years. I actually, just a few months ago, I broke my ribs. I had 5 ribs that I busted. So I've been kind of mending those. I have a huge match coming up in Hillsdale College, which is going to be our nationals, which will be the first week of August. So we're training up really hard for that, as well as just looking at the World Championships, World Cups as we lead up to Paris for 2024. That's the next Olympics. That's what we're all going for, at least for me personally. And hopefully I'll be able to wear that red, white, and blue on my back and represent our country again.
So how take us through the steps? So you have, in order to qualify for the team, what do you have to do to qualify to get there?
So each Olympics is different. Every Olympics has been different. This year, the rules have changed for Paris. So essentially, you have to shoot World Cups, World Championships in the 2 years prior, earn points, and then be worldly ranked, and then come back to the United States, and then they have selection matches. So you can either earn your slot by your world rank or also by a selection match within the United States. So there's a multi-process there on how you determine if you're going or not. And it's really based upon your national governing body, which would be USA Shooting, and their process. And so, yeah, that's still to be determined exactly what they're going to do, if they're going to do several matches, if they're going to do it based on points. Nobody really knows as of yet, but I'm sure that will be determined by the end of the year. So
you just carry on as normal, go to your normal
carry on as normal. Yep, pretty much. And, we're going to all these selections and, competing. And right now, just really trying to drill in that perfect score, that 100 out of 100 or 125 out of 125. And, at the end of the day, it's about, USA walking away with those medals and seeing that flagpole and that flag at the top of the pole and hearing that national anthem, whether that's me or one of my teammates, that's all anyone can ask for.
And on a team, like a shooting team, you all are very supportive of each other.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I think it's like anything, we're all competitive when we're out on that line and we're shooting against each other. But when we're off that line, we're friends, we're family. I know a lot of us get together, we go fishing and shooting, and we do a lot of shopping and just normal everyday thing. I think people forget that we're like everybody else. We cook breakfast and dinner, and we have laundry and chores just like everybody else. And it just happens to be that we're pretty good with guns, with shooting.
Okay. Well, Kim, it has been just a wonderful discussion. I can't thank you enough. I thank you for being a great ambassador of the sport, and congratulations on so many victories. You are the pride of the shooting community. In fact, when I was telling some of the people at the shoot this last weekend that I was going to interview you, like, oh wow, that is so cool. Everybody knows who you are, and so I was so proud to be able to do this. I wish you a lot of luck. Hopefully you get to Paris. That's going to be great, and we'll all be watching. And I think the next one is Los Angeles. That you'd get to do it in front of the home crowd,
which would be amazing, right? That's why I say at least have 2 more Olympics, maybe 3 or 4. I don't know. I think that's the beauty of shooting, is that there's no shelf life. I looked at the oldest medalist in the history of Olympics was a shooter. His name was Oscar Swan, and he was 72 when he won a silver medal. So I'm only like 43 right now, so I have a few more Olympics in me, I like to say.
A few.
But at the same time too, I love what I do. I love the people, I love the travel, and I love the competition. I love to be in that moment down to the wire where everything's on the line. It's hit or miss. And, I think that's what we all live for as far as on the competitive side. So for me, I very much look forward to it. And yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And, hopefully we get to do this again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, again,
Easier
thank
questions
you.
next time. Easier questions. No, I'm kidding.
No, no, you did great.
You
did
asked some
great.
good questions, I have to say. You asked some really good
No,
questions.
no,
So
you did great. And I appreciate, obviously where you stand on the Second Amendment and that, you're standing up for it. So that's important to all of us who shoot and, or any American who, wants to own a firearm.
well,
So
I think as a shooter, you recognize that, especially being on the Olympic side where we're more, to the general public with the questions that we get asked, the calls that we get when any of these unfortunate tragedies occur. I mean, they have nothing to do with our sport. I mean, our sport is about responsibility, discipline, focus, about safety, and all these things. But when you have to answer those questions, I think that's when you realize about the education side and really educating people about the sport and what it is we love and what you and I take for granted every day as far as just being able to go out and shoot and acknowledge, all the different stuff. So that's why I feel it's so important to share, to pass on, and to try to help grow the sport. As I find so much reward that it has given to me in my life, and so many others that I have seen. And yeah, I just I think it's a wonderful thing. So thank you for giving me the time and the opportunity. And
my
yeah,
pleasure. I hope to have you on after you win your next Olympic medal.
sounds like a plan. We'll have to make that happen. I like how you think. Hopefully it's gold, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That'd be great. And we will have you on. So thank you
Oh,
so much, Kim. Thank you.
thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.
Bye.